Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because I want you to go ahead right now without even thinking about it and just try and name a cooler toy than this. Yes, my friends, up for consideration today we have the almighty Darth Vader Death Star from 2007. This is a toy I've admired for many years now, and finally I got my hands on one. And just look at this box, right? Like, it's immense. And you know what? Star Wars is cool, Transformers is cool, this thing is unadulterated cool. I just absolutely cannot wait to check it out. I mean, seriously, just check this out.
The Force is strong with you.
Now, before we go any further, I should mention that this review is brought to you by TFSource.com, so you should go and check them out for all your Transformers needs. You'll find a link in the video description below, and they've got tons of amazing stuff in stock and available for pre-order now, so what are you waiting for? A couple of amazing things I want to point out before we kind of get into the box here, and the first is the logo, which is so strange to see because it's the early to mid-2000s Transformers, More Than Meets the Eye. It's the RID styled font. It's really nostalgic for me. Adore that character artwork as well. Very menacing. Got to take a moment to acknowledge the size of this box and the setup in there. They've got this whole kind of cargo bay interior going on, which is just an unprecedented level of detail with the figures displayed really nicely. It's just gorgeous. It's even got that little cardboard cutout Death Star at the back there to advertise the actual size of the alternate mode. Very nifty idea. And you can only just about make them out, but there's even some little TIE fighters mounted there for a bit of a display. But as nice as all of that is, it is finally time to unseal this 18-year-old toy. Now, some may call that sacrilege or whatever, but it's not like this is a particularly valuable toy or anything. I mean, I picked it up quite cheap, actually, considering it was sealed, and I'm a great believer that once you own these things, they're yours to do with as you please. And now we got it out the box, you can appreciate that hangar scene for all it's worth. That is just how you do toy packaging, in my opinion. Really awesome. However, it's once you get the thing itself out of the box that you can really admire what a showstopper it truly is. It's just breathtaking to behold. It's a toy that I've admired from afar for years, as I say, so actually seeing it here in front of me is kind of a weird one, actually. Like, in a way, it's smaller than I might have imagined, and yet somehow way more impressive. It's just such a great sculpt, a real presence to it, just a true beauty of the time, and a lot of fun, what can I say? I mean, obviously we'll get to all the gimmicks and all that good stuff in just a moment, but first it's worth appreciating the looks of this thing, starting with that undeniably handsome head sculpt, and it is quite stylized. I feel like it's a little bit more mean than your classic Vader from the films, but still, it definitely works. There's also a little bit of a speckled quality to some of the black plastic, which I hadn't expected at all, and it's kind of a weird one because it almost makes it look a bit dusty. Like, I wanted to dust it off, but it doesn't look bad at all, just unexpected. Of course, you've got this great big gaping hole in the chest there, which is the voice box, which is a little bit of a departure from the classic look, but hey, he's already covered in Death Star kibble, so what does it matter, I guess? You do have some splodges of silver paint around the place just to give it a few highlights, which is nice. You can also see that on areas such as the toes, and then there are those red translucent shins as well, which add a welcome pop of colour. Really though, the overall colour scheme is undeniably quite monochrome, and I don't think that's bad because that's Darth Vader at the end of the day. I mean, they could have got a little bit of blue or something in there to maybe break it up just a tiny smidge, but it still looks really good. If you flip him around, then the colour of these back panel planet pieces is kind of interesting though, because honestly I could have looked at it and thought it was a little bit discoloured. It's not the very cool grey that I kind of expected. I mean, for starters, it's too uniform to be discoloured, right? Like, there's no hint of it being in one particular area or a couple of areas. It's absolutely consistent across the whole piece, so I do think that that is just the kind of slightly strange colour of it. It's a weird choice, but it doesn't look bad. I mean, if we're going to talk about anything from that back view, it should probably be the fact that this chap is basically wearing the Death Star as some sort of coat. I mean, it's the shell former to the utmost degree, and it's really got a reputation for that, but you can absolutely see why that is here. Honestly, I don't mind that though. Some people are going to have a problem with that or critique it for it. It doesn't bother me. I've seen worse shell formers before, and it is kind of the nature of a lot of these planet transformers anyway, to kind of get them into a ball shape, and honestly, the robot mode looks so good, and it's just so inherently fun that who's quibbling, really? I don't know. But believe it or not, you can actually mix up and accessorize his look a little bit as well, because included in the box is this rather natty little cloth cape, which is rather fun. There's this little groove to place it in just behind his head, so you just kind of want to slot it in. It's a little bit of a tight fit, but once you get it in, it's very solid, and then you can just kind of drape it over the back here. It does mean that from the rear, it's got to fit over that kind of massive planet-sized backpack, but it kind of works, and it certainly looks cool from the front. Like, it hangs quite nicely and kind of flows. A little bit funny how it kind of goes over the backpack, but honestly, it adds a little bit of a dapper touch to the proceedings, let's say. I mean, it's quite unusual for a Transformers toy of any kind to come with like a cloth accessory, so this is really something. And then we really should talk gimmicks, because this thing has quite a few of them. The first of which, of course, is this little sound chip, as we've seen on the chest, and it actually has a range of phrases, including
Join me on the dark side. The rebels must not escape. The circle is now complete. The force is strong with you. I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Then there are more lights and sounds to do with the lightsaber, although it's not actually in the lightsaber itself, it's all activated by this little button on his arm, just here. What is cool though is that if you keep pressing the button, the lightsaber sound will continue, and you get swooshing effects for every press as well. You will also find there's a little automatic switch inside the hand itself, so as you place the lightsaber in, it goes off. The lightsaber itself looks pretty cool and is nicely painted on the hilt with a lovely little bit of silver. I don't know if it looks that lightsabery though, like it's more kind of generic laser sword than anything. It doesn't have that kind of like real straight feel that I sort of always associate with a lightsaber, and it's a little bit more kind of like rosy pink than it is red, like Sith red, which is a strange choice, but never mind. Then you've got this rather handsome blaster weapon with a big green missile in there. That all looks super cool, and it is spring-loaded, so if you just press this little button here, then it will go flying. Then of course we come to the little minifigures, and these things are quite superbly detailed actually, considering how small they are. I mean, I don't think the moulding is that exceptional. You can see a few differences on the Stormtroopers, for example, but overall they look decent, and I think they really round off this set quite nicely. There is even a little bit of articulation on there. I mean, you can move Darth's arms, for example, and his legs, which is a little bit strange, but there you go. And the Stormtroopers are the same. Again, you've got arm articulation and legs. But again, though, they are really small. I mean, height-wise, they stack up to be a little bit taller than either a vintage or a new Diaclone pilot, but a bit smaller than stuff like your Masterpiece humans. They're also very definitely not in scale with the included TIE fighters, but that's okay, I don't really think they're meant to be. The TIE fighters themselves are pretty cool in my opinion. I mean, they're nicely detailed considering how small they are, and they are a decent approximation of what you see in the films. Weirdly, you can remove these wing pieces should you really wish. They just kind of pop off and pop back on again, and this rather suggestive little piece at the bottom is also movable. It just kind of moves up and down like so. Weirdly, these little guys have been made into Transformers as well, because they've got these little head bits that kind of pry up like so. So I guess they're meant to be like drones, but rather creative considering how small they are. Anyway, you get 3 of them overall, and again, it's just a fun little inclusion. Sure, they don't scale with anything, but really, who gives a monkeys, right? Now, in case you're worried about losing all of this stuff, you can actually hide it away inside Darth Vader. Now, there are just these little panels that pop open on his back, kind of on his shoulders, just there, and the TIE fighters will kind of pop inside, just like that. You might have to take the wings off and just kind of fold it up again, so it's a bit bizarre, but it's an option. Then coming around to the front again, you've got these little red panels on his shoulder things, which just kind of pop open like so, and then you can just put your little Stormtroopers in there and close it up again. It's just like in a little prison. And it's a similar story with these doors on the legs, which also just pop open like so, and then you can take your little minifigures, just slot them in like that, close it up, jobs are good. It does make for quite the display though, with these guys just kind of frozen in place. I don't know why, it kind of amuses me a little bit. Really though, this guy's quite a lot of fun to mess with beyond the gimmicks. I mean, the articulation's pretty good too. The head will kind of swivel from side to side quite freely, and it can move up and down just a little bit. Perhaps inevitably some of the movement is slightly hampered by the kibble, but if you just move it out the way, you actually get a fairly decent range and nice clicky joints at those shoulders, and they will go all the way up and out as well. There's no bicep rotation, but there is one below the elbow, and you get about a 90-degree bend there too, as well as a wrist swivel, so that's a nice touch. Now, surprisingly, there is waist rotation, which I really did not expect on a figure of this size from this time. Legs are a little bit more complicated thanks to all the kibble, but there is a really decent range again. I mean, the hips will go all the way past 90 degrees, really good range at those hips, and again, nice clicky joints as well. Same goes for the knees, which have got major ratchets going on, but you're really not going to get very much range there. Maybe just 1 or 2 clicks to about 45 degrees or so. That's okay though, there is quite a bit of movement in these feet, which will go up and down, and there is an ankle tilt as well just there, and you can also manipulate the heels to kind of fit whichever poses and try and keep him stable anyway. It all adds up to a robot mode that, yeah, maybe it's not the most articulated Transformers toy I've ever messed with, but actually considering the size of it, the era that we're talking about, it's pretty good actually, like more than I would have anticipated anyway, and he's just a lot of fun to mess with. And again, naturally a lot of the appeal here is down to the size, because you can see versus some of your recent Generations and Studio Series bots, he's really quite massive, but not like so big that it's completely unwieldy either, just a very pleasing height overall. I mean, in terms of other modern fare, he's not too far off things like MPG Jinrai, which is a big toy to be fair, so he's definitely got a bit of presence to him. And technically this is a Supreme class Transformer, and to be fair, he does stack up at roughly the same height as stuff like the animated Rollout Command Optimus Prime, although they're very different toys, let me just say. Definitely not as sizable as the Supreme class Beast Machines Cheetor though, which some fans will tell you is the best Transformers toy ever made. Likewise, he looks not unexpectedly tiny versus the gargantuan HasLab Unicron. Really though, the ultimate money shot is surely seeing it opposite the original Unicron toy from Armada, or in this case the Japanese Micron Legend version. And here you've also got the Primus mold, although this is the 2010 Takara version. And what is a surprise is that actually Vader is smaller than both of them. And I don't mind that, because ultimately it's not like the Death Star is supposed to be like a full-size planet, but still it is interesting to see, if only because these three toys were all advertised under the Supreme banner back in the day, and they all transform into planetoids, let's say. And speaking of planetoid modes, I think it's probably about time we checked out this guy's transformation. There we go, that's transformation done, and wow, that's pretty panel heavy stuff all told, but actually it comes together really nicely and leaves you with what is undeniably a very attractive alternate form. And what can I say except that's no moon. I mean, I'm not going to lie, there were a couple of times during the transformation where I honestly thought it was going to be a complete mess, right? Because there are panels that kind of don't want to clip into other panels, and it doesn't really kind of clip in all that solidly until probably the last 4 or 5 steps, and then actually it all kind of suddenly comes together, and it's very solid once you're done. And overall, I think the result looks wicked actually. Like, it's a great little representation of the Death Star. It's very spherical, so it's got all of that going for it, and just, yeah, it's exactly what I wanted it to be. I mean, even having seen plenty of photos of this thing over the years, I don't think I could have predicted that it would end up being this spherical and this clean. It's a great job. Obviously you've got the little feet on the bottom, but you can fold those away if indeed you don't want them out, but they do help it to stand. It's just great, honestly. There are a couple of panels, like particularly along here, that could kind of squidge together maybe a little bit better than they do. It's kind of got that slight squishy feeling to it. Maybe I can improve that with further transformations, but honestly it's not the end of the world, and it does look really nice. Lovely paint all around here and everything as well, so I'm happy. And yeah, the finish is a little bit plain, but you've got white paint and some darker grey and things as well to try and break it up a little bit, so honestly it pretty much looks as I expected it to. And at the risk of repeating myself, I can't get over how spherical it is. Like, honestly, a big deal was made about HasLab Unicron, right? Because they managed to get the alt mode to be a complete sphere. Here you have it, actually, all those years ago, and they did it. Now, there are still some gimmicks in this mode. I mean, first of all, you've got those compartments, which you may have seen. I've stored the cape in here on the one, and you can get some of the TIE fighters in on the other. Then what is quite cool is that the gun from the robot mode is actually behind this dish section of the Death Star, and at it does mean that you can just install the missile in there like so. It just clips into place. Now you can actually install the lightsaber behind here for storage as well. I didn't do it during transformation because I wasn't feeling ambitious enough, but it can be done. Anyway, with the missile in place, then you can flip up these little panels on top of the Death Star, and then you can probably just about see in there, that's actually Vader's robot mode head, and if you press down on there, that's what activates the gun. It all kind of clicks together with a very clever mechanism. You may fire when ready. Now, another really cool way that the gimmicks carry over from the robot mode is the lights and sounds, as activated by this little button here. And again, because of the way the transformation works and the fact that you've got Vader's chest and gun just behind this dish section, it does mean that it will all light up when the button is pressed, like so.
You may fire when ready.
So overall, I really don't know what more you could want from a transformable Darth Vader Death Star, right? Like, it's just an awesome package. Tons of gimmicks, loads of fun, it looks great in both modes. I mean, who wouldn't want such a thing? It also, by the way, looks absolutely incredible next to stuff like the Armada Unicron in its alternate mode. And here you've got the 2010 Universal Dominator version and the original Energon version as well in black. And that is everything I wanted it to be in terms of how they line up together. Just incredible. I mean, I don't know if this is settling the age-old internet debate of who would win in a fight, Unicron or the Death Star, but at least now you know what they look like next to one another. Mostly though, I'm just very thankful to finally experience this absolutely incredible toy. After all of these years, it did not disappoint. And a huge thank you also to TF Source for bringing you this video. You can find a link to their site down in the description below, and you should absolutely go and check them out because they're really good at supporting this kind of weird and wonderful content. I'd also be very grateful if you could leave me a like for today's effort, please. But otherwise, that's it from me. So have a great rest of your day, and may the Force be with you.